Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net talking about another podcast. I admit, I wasn't expecting to be doing a podcast this soon after my previous one. But while I was in the work of editing the previous podcast, I thought, there's a game that I really want to talk about. I've recently replayed it. I had a lot of fun replaying it, had a lot of fun playing it in the first place. And then I realized even though only one game has been released for this, not including the side game that'll be out probably in about a month, but this is a game that I feel deserves its own podcast because I want to see more games from this franchise. I thought the game had a great setup. I think this could make a great PlayStation exclusive franchise. I want to see that. I want to see more games released under this banner, and that's kind of why I want to do this podcast. So sit back and relax as old Maniac tells you the story of Until Dawn. For those of you who may be new to Game Access Podcast, that's okay, but I'll kind of give you the rub as to how we do these here. And basically they work like this. They're unscripted. I'm going completely off the cuff. No script, no help, nothing like that. And typically in this series' podcast, we usually talk about my history with the franchise and the history of the franchise itself. The game or the games that are released for the franchise. And we usually wrap it up with where I feel the future is headed for it. So with all that introduction out of the way, I think it's time for us to get started. I want to start this podcast by talking about my first experience with Until Dawn. Because there's not too much information available about this game, at least behind the scenes information, nothing that I've seen specifically. There are documentaries and stuff on the game disc, and I'm really grateful for Supermassive for including them. So props, I love when games include documentaries and behind the scenes stuff, and this game had a lot of behind the scenes videos and stuff, so I really am happy about that. But most of those documentaries were more about the production of the game, basically what it took to make the game. They didn't go into what it took to get the game made, if you know what I mean. Nothing involving pre-production or who they had to talk to, investors, what it was like talking to, Sony, who they shopped around for. There was nothing like that, at least on this documentary, at least nothing that I can remember. But it was cool to see what went into making the game once they had the game's design document nailed down. That was cool. So let's talk a little bit about at least what I could tell to be my first experience actually seeing this game in any way, shape, or form, basically. I don't know if this was the initial announcement of the game, but I'm pretty certain that it was. Back in 2012, of all things, I actually saw Until Dawn previewed very briefly on the G4 TV channel, the now defunct G4 TV channel. Now, I know what a lot of you guys are going to be saying. G4, Maniac, you were really watching G4 in 2012. The show was on its outs by that point. Or the whole station was on its outs by that point. And plus, didn't you spend, I think it was 2011, just railing against the series, railing against the station, telling them either cancel, either bring back their shows or shut down? Well, apparently they did. Okay. I have to answer these questions. I have to answer all of these questions, actually. First off, I have to give props to G4 for at least one thing. 2012, the new episodes that they had produced for 2012 were a lot better than the episodes that were produced for 2011. And I can tell right now, I just feel like they had better writers in 2012, because watching a show like X-Play, the reviews were better. I just felt like the reviews were better. And no, that's no slam on Adam Sessler, because I know Adam Sessler was replaced by Blair Herter at that point. And I did like the Blair Herter episodes. I had those episodes. I was constantly watching those episodes. But that's no slam on Adam Sessler. I don't believe that him being there or not being there was the issue. I think there were probably other people behind the scenes that either may have left or may have gotten better. between 2011 and 2012 because I felt like the reviews were simply just better during that time. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that G4 was going to be gone, and within a year from there. So maybe they felt, well, I'm going to be out of a job in just a couple of months. Nothing to hold back now. Might as well write some really, really good stuff now. And I could see that. I could definitely see that because G4 in 2012 was very good, and obviously they were gone by the beginning of 2013. But they were covering, if I remember correctly, they were covering the Gamescom 2012 event, and there were two games that they talked about as a preview for. I think it was either X-Play or it was for Attack of the Show, but I'm pretty certain it was for X-Play. They announced two games from Gamescom. Both of them were PlayStation 3 exclusives at the time. And one was called Rain, which did get released as a digital downloadable title for the PS3. It is available. You can download it right now. I have, I've played it. I loved it very much. I was just wowed when I first saw that one. So that was the first game that I saw in that preview. And the second game that they showed in that preview was a game called Until Dawn. They only showed a couple of snippets of footage of the game. It was running on PlayStation 3 hardware, and it was very clear that they were kind of trying to go for a game that was very much like a horror movie, Cabin in the Woods, Friday the 13th type feel. Not in overall appearance, but a feel. They were going for something like Cabin in the Woods, basically, because it was about a bunch of young people who were stuck in a cabin, and they were being picked off one by one, and you decide if they lived or died. That that very much reminded me of Cabin in the Woods or the original Friday the 13th, for example. That's kind of what it reminded me of. On top of that, it was announced as a PlayStation Move exclusive. Now, I know that I don't think I've talked about PlayStation Move that much on this podcast. Needless to say, the PlayStation Move, I had the PlayStation Move. I liked the PlayStation Move. I remember what actually got me interested in the PlayStation Move were two games, and this was before Until Dawn came out. Until Dawn, I already had a PlayStation Move by that point. So when they said Until Dawn was going to be coming for the PlayStation Move, I was like, oh great, this is PlayStation Move. I have only just a couple of games to take advantage of it. It'll be awesome to finally take advantage or play a new game that takes advantage of the control system. But previously, the two games that I was using the PlayStation Move with and really, really enjoyed it playing were Sorcery and, of course, Heavy Rain. So I thought it would be really cool to actually have a new game on the PlayStation 3, a PS3 exclusive, that used and took advantage of the PlayStation Move controller. Now, when I told you that story, I kind of feel like I have to postscript that story with the fact that the PlayStation Move by that point was pretty much dead. When it came down to the motion control wars in the second during that the second half of that console generation, it was all motion control. Everybody was doing motion control. Xbox had the Kinect, Sony had the PlayStation Move, and of course Nintendo had the Wiimote Plus, but Motion Plus. But really, everyone has to admit this. If there was a winner of that war, it would had to have been the Kinect. Everybody really liked the Kinect. Everybody preferred the Kinect. Now, that's not because the Kinect, at least in my opinion, was a better device. It just was an easier device. I think it was an easier device for consumers, and I'll tell you why I think that. For any consumer, basically, who wanted to take advantage of motion control for the Xbox 360, all you needed was a Kinect. Yes, it cost $100 to $150 premium, but all you needed was one Kinect. You plugged it into your Xbox, and if you needed to play Kinect games or games that took advantage of the Kinect or with the Kinect enhancements, you could do that. The Motion, the Motion Plus was on all new controllers, so it, for the Nintendo Wii, so there was no big deal there, of course. But I don't think many Motion Plus adapters. I mostly just traded out my Wiimotes with new ones. But what I think really hurt for the PlayStation Move was, number one, the PS3 was not. It required a lot of things. You needed more than just a camera. You needed to have controllers, and you needed to have controllers for every player. And on top of that, not only did you need to have Move 1 controllers for every player, you also needed to have a second controller. In this case, it was either a navigation controller or you could use a DualShock controller. But that was just one other thing you had to buy. A price premium for, even with a bundled package, basically, you'd be paying $125 or so if you wanted to get the extra navigation controller for a PlayStation Move. If you wanted to take full advantage of the PlayStation Move, you needed the camera, you needed the controller, the Move 1, whatever you want to call it, and you needed a navigation controller or DualShock. If you wanted to connect, you just bought the Kinect and you plugged it in and it worked. And it would, basically, you could use it for both players. And I think that hurt. I think that hurt because people would be like, well, all these controllers are now piling up in my storage bin. I got to keep all these, charged and everything. I think that hurt the Move adoption. Meanwhile, Kinect, they did right. They were bundling with, the price premium was fair. There later was a rebellion against the Kinect once the Xbox One generation came out, but I've already told that story and I won't go into it. So honestly, I think motion control right now, it's not. Unless it's built into the control systems of the controllers themselves, I think that by that point, Until Dawn might have, maybe Sony realized, or maybe the developers for Until Dawn realized, all these things are in fact the case. That the PlayStation Move is not getting the adoption rate that it needed to by that point. The PS3's hardware was getting long in the tooth, and the PlayStation 4 was already starting to ship dev kits and stuff like that. And the PlayStation 4 had motion control built into their controller out of the box with no need for a camera, although a camera option was possible. It was, a camera. It was a 3D camera. So there was a lot going for the PlayStation 4. There was a lot of reasons why I could understand why Supermassive would decide to change development from the PlayStation 3 and the Move controller to the PlayStation 4. I mentioned Sorcery earlier. Sorcery flopped, if I remember correctly. Now, some people would probably argue, and I would probably argue, Sorcery probably flopped because the game was not finished. I liked the game. I really liked the game for what it was, but even I could tell that final cutscene, that wasn't an ending. That was like some guy had taken the storyboards and scanned them into a computer, turned them into a simple video slideshow with no audio, and just, there's your ending. And just there's your ending. So yeah, Sorcery was a disappointment. I felt like Sorcery, which was, as far as I can remember, the last PlayStation Move game I played on the PlayStation 3, it was a disappointment. It really was. And it didn't sell well. Again, probably because it required the PlayStation Move wand, and not too many players had it. So I think Until Dawn realized that they were putting up a pretty big gamble by continuing with the way that they were. The next time we would see Until Dawn demoed, it would be after the PlayStation 4 was already announced. Let me take you back to Gamescom 2014, 2 years after Until Dawn was announced as a PlayStation Move exclusive PS3 title. And here it was again, and it looked so much better. I gotta say, I recently rewatched the game's original announcement trailer from 2012, and having played the finished version of the game, I have to say that initial trailer, most if not all of what was included in that trailer did end up in the final game. But what we saw at Gamescom 2014 of this game running on the PlayStation 4 blew everybody, including myself, away. It still had the art style, it still had the feel of Until Dawn, but the characters that were playing looked more real. The lighting looked more moody and atmospheric. The snow looked more enveloping. Everything about this game just looked better. And that's a testament to Supermassive Games and their decisions, certainly. But more than that, we saw for the first time that these guys had gotten digital actors, real actors, and simply digitized them, which is not something that we saw in the initial announcement trailer back in 2012. We had recognizable characters, basically recognizable actors playing these characters. Anyways, all eyes were on this game again. It wowed a lot of people at that Gamescom, including myself. And really what I wanted was two things. One, I wanted a release date. And two, I wanted to know when we could see this even more of the game. The initial announcement trailer for it showed no gameplay footage. It wasn't pre-rendered stuff. It was being done on PlayStation 4 dev kits, of course, but they were, captured game cinematics, basically. We didn't get to see any live gameplay. It was just a trailer, which was great, which was fine, but all it really made me want to do was see actual gameplay from the game. Needless to say, I didn't have to wait that much longer in order to see this game again. And I'm grateful that Sony knew to do that. The thing that I gotta really say I appreciate with Sony was I think Sony kind of knew that they had a hit on their hands. There really aren't that many PlayStation 4 exclusive titles out there. Certainly not in comparison to the incredible amount of Xbox One exclusive titles. It hasn't really helped the Xbox One all that much in sales. The PlayStation 4 is still winning this generation's video game format war. But Sony really did show a lot of this game. It was once they had the Gamescom 2014 trailer, the next time we saw that game was maybe 2 or 3 months later in December at the PlayStation Experience keynote. They showed an entire scene from the game, a 7.5-minute live game demo played on stage live of actual real gameplay that did end up in the final game. Maybe it was tweaked or something like that, so it was beta code, but you can play that scene in the game. PlayStation Experience was their expo. That's a celebration of all things Sony. That's a celebration of all things PlayStation. And to show that Sony would not only have that game up at the keynote, but do a 7.5-minute demo of this game. I mean, Sony really had a lot of faith in this game, and it was great to see it. This was the first time we really got to see actual gameplay, so we got to, like I said, previous stuff had all been trailers and all story trailers and cutscenes and stuff. But this was the first time we got to see what you could actually do in this game, particularly that you could actually make interactive choices, kind of like an adventure game. Up until, maybe about, in the early days of the PC, adventure titles were, very common. It was a staple of gaming, just as much as like the platformer or the side-scrolling platformer or the space or the space dogfighter or something like that. Adventure titles were in the Renaissance back then. And fortunately, once the first-person shooter came in and then there was online play, for the longest time, adventure gaming was considered dead. It wasn't until episodic adventure gaming came in around 2006, 2007 or so, with titles like the Sam & Max games by Telltale and other games that Telltale were working on. After that, the adventure game came back in a big way. Just an amazingly big way. And you had games like Indigo Prophecy coming in. You had games like, obviously later on, Heavy Rain. I mean, I consider these adventure titles. And now, of course, we've got, adventure Batman games. We've got adventure Game of Thrones adventure games, Back to the Future. Everybody's, Life is Strange is an adventure, There's a lot of there's just a new renaissance of adventure titles happening, and Until Dawn is a part of that renaissance. So what was in this demo? Well, it starts off with the typical horror trope. You've got a beautiful girl, starting off in a hot tub. She hears something. She goes to investigate it in a towel, and then she's running from a serial killer. Immediately, the demo grabbed you, and I think that's the reason why they chose that scene. It grabbed you because it was action-packed. It showed, it was a varied scene, so you could see the different things. You could see, okay, you can make a choice to do this here. You can make a choice to do this here. There's button contact sequences, dialogue. I can't remember if there were dialogue options or not. I don't think there were, but you could easily have imagined that would be there. In fact, the demo did so well that during certain decision points, actually, while the guy doing the demo probably already had a preset, script for how he was going to play and what decisions he was going to make, I remember watching a live stream of the keynote experience and seeing that I remember hearing as the guy was being given not dialogue options, but decision options during the game, the audience was kind of cheering and screaming out what they wanted, but kind of hoping that maybe this was going to, this was an interactive scene, and maybe it was. I don't know for sure. It's possible he could have already had his decision scripted out, or it's possible he could have chosen it. I know that in the final version of the game, you can certainly play out that scene, exactly as he did, or you could play it out completely differently because those decision options are in the final version. So I don't know exactly, but I know for a fact that I heard the people at the keynote, the audience of the keynote, screaming out, or screaming out answers or decision options, hoping that the guy would listen to them or do a majority decision or something on how to play the scene out. That tells me that a whole audience that big of diehard PlayStation fans were invested in this little game, which is great, which is phenomenal, which is amazing. So the demo played out, and I think it was a pretty good success. I enjoyed watching it. I definitely reported on it on my website after the event happened. It was a great way, to kick off the show. I don't remember if a live demo was done because I wasn't actually at the PlayStation Experience convention, so I don't know exactly if anybody got a chance to get a real hands-on for the game. Certainly, if there was, they were not streamed. Like, there was no stream, at least not that I saw, of gameplay from that year's event, unfortunately. But we wouldn't have to wait very much longer. 2 months later, in February, there was the infamous Valentine's Day trailer for Until Dawn. So, like I said, Sony was regularly dropping new content and new trailers and stuff like that for the game. But at this point, there really was no gameplay footage available just yet. Like I said, even the Valentine's Day trailer was, pre-scripted. It was just cinematics and stuff. It was a pre-rendered trailer. It wasn't rendered game footage, but it was probably rendered on, like I said, on PlayStation hardware, of course. But they were cutscenes. These were I wanted to see live gameplay. And the game was shown again at E3 2015. And after the game was shown at E3 2015 for the keynote, like they showed an all-new trailer. And this was, like I said, we finally got to see the digital actors. Obviously, I don't know if I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but it was becoming clearer and clearer and clearer that they had gotten recognizable actors to actually be in the game. Obviously, the game was going to star Hayden Panettiere. I believe I'm pronouncing her name properly. Who most people probably remember from the show Heroes. Obviously, she played Claire in the show Heroes. She also was in a whole bunch of Disney movies and stuff like that. So she had been, an actress in acting for quite a while. I think I also remembered her in the Kingdom Hearts games where she was awesome, and she was a really big name to have on this. Of course, the game also had other big name actors, from film and television. The Megan Martin, I believe, is her name. She was the voice actress for Nominee, and in Kingdom Hearts, she was going to be in the game playing Jessica. The girl they got to play, Ashley, I finally remembered. I finally remembered from a what was it? I guess the word would be made for TV movie that Cartoon Network had done. It was the second Ben 10. I think it was called Ben 10 Alien Swarm. It was a live action Ben 10 movie, and it was and she played Ben 10's sister in that movie, and she was great. I actually, I mean, I remember watching it back when it was first premiered on television. I loved it so much. I got the Blu-ray when the Blu-ray came out. It really was a good game. I'm sorry, a good movie, and definite props to her for doing a great job in it. And I was happy to see her in the in Until Dawn. Other people, of course, obviously the guy from Mr. Robot, of course, was playing Josh. So you got to talk about that, of course. I don't really want to go into the whole cast and everything because I'll be here forever if I do that. But they got a great cast of talented individuals together, you know, from video games, from television, from movies. That were gonna, you know, it was a big deal that they had this. Like I said, doing motion capture digital actors is no new thing. Probably some of the major pioneers in the last decade was probably Naughty Dog. But while they actually got actors and stuff to do voice work, motion capture, digital performance capture, and stuff like that, they were using, you know, CG renders of they were not using the actual character, you know, the actual actors' likenesses and stuff like that. It wouldn't be until probably games like Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls where they actually used actual character, you know, actor appearances and stuff like that when applicable. So it was really cool to see a full actor. It was always cool to see a full actor actually give a performance on a digital stage. You don't really see that much, but when you do, it's a treat. And Until Dawn really showed that. And for E3 2015, not only were we going to get a good look at the cast, but we finally got to see our first look at actual live gameplay. After the the Sony E3 keynote wrapped up, Sony does a 3-day live stream where they basically get and do live demos and live interviews and stuff with a lot of the companies and a lot of the developers that are showing games at the E3 event. And one of the games that they did demo at E3 2015 for the live stream was the first actual gameplay from Until Dawn. That's when they announced, oh, we're using the Killzone engine for this game. And as you can see here, we've got not only full control for the DualShock controller, but if you notice how I'm tilting the controller right here, and you can see how the character's responding to it, you can see that actually we're also using not only the thumbsticks, but we will make use of the motion control system in the DualShock 4. And let me tell you something, not too many games actually make use of those motion controls, and if they do, they don't do it very well. Until Dawn was one of the games that actually did do the motion controls well, I thought. I mean, a lot of games take use of the touchpad, don't get me wrong, and but usually you don't see the games making use of the motion controls. So props to Sony for doing that. And so yeah, I can't tell you how excited that I was after seeing the E3 demos and stuff. Okay, when are we going to get the game? When are we finally going to get a chance to play it? When am I going to finally be able to play this game? I've got my PS4. I'm ready to pick this game up. We found out we were going to have to wait until August 2015. That was going to be when it was going to be coming out, August 2015. If you wanted to pick up a copy of the game, there were two ways to do so. Obviously, the game was going to be sold not only digitally, but also at retail. And typically speaking, if the game is being offered at retail, I'll usually probably 19 times out of 20, I'll get the physical retail version. Very rarely I purchase games digitally unless it's a digital only title. And even for digital only titles, I prefer to have a disc. I'm the kind of person that prefers to have a physical disc. I know that in this generation there really isn't that much of a difference in benefits between having a retail disc and not having a retail disc, but I prefer to have a retail disc. Now, the reason why I brought this whole up between digital and retail has to do with the fact that Sony was pushing Until Dawn very hard on the PlayStation Network for digital pre-orders. In fact, it was one of the early games on the PlayStation Network that was being offered as a digital pre-order with no retail. Now, there's no real big deal. I could totally understand if somebody wants to pre-order something at retail. I totally understand that. Sometimes, especially when it comes to collector's editions, having a pre-order down for something actually does make sense for two reasons. One, it lets the retailer know, well, we better stock this product because a lot of people have pre-ordered it. It's probably assumed that more than just these people who pre-ordered it are going to want copies. So let's stock this product or inform our producer that we have to stock this product or get a lot of copies of this stuff. So that's one reason. The other reason is that, especially with limited collector's editions, things can be rare. Things can be, have smaller production. So it's important that the person who wants it, who pays it off early, make sure they get it. It's a bit more fair in that respect. So there's a lot of reasons why you would want to offer something for pre-order at retail. However, when it comes to digital, I can't think of a single reason why you would want to pre-order something digitally. And for me personally, now these are just my own personal experiences, but I've heard that there were others. I haven't had a single positive experience pre-ordering something digitally on the PlayStation Store on my PS4. Not one. If, in fact, anything, I actually would have had a better experience ordering the game after it got released as opposed to pre-ordering it. And I've heard other stories about other products that I did not pre-order that had even worse problems than the games that I had in fact pre-ordered. Now again, this is on a game-by-game basis, and your mileage may vary. But needless to say, after the two experiences that I had pre-ordering games on the PlayStation 4 using the PlayStation Network, they were not positive, and I won't be doing it again. I'll wait for the games to come out. I don't care what they're offering. So I wasn't going to be ordering Until Dawn digitally. That having been said, from what I found out, as I was doing research for this podcast and in my anecdotes I've seen since I played the game, there was a condition under which there was a pre-order bonus for anybody who picked up Until Dawn digitally through pre-order on the PlayStation Network, and that was an exclusive DLC story mission. That's right, Until Dawn had some pre-order DLC in the form of a storyline DLC segment, campaign mission, whatever you want to call it, that was given out to anybody that pre-ordered the game digitally. Now, I've heard stories under which there were some people who might have pre-ordered the game at retail that might have gotten download codes for this, and you can post a comment if this happened to you. But I hadn't seen any retailers, at least where I'm from, offer digital download codes with pre-orders. And since I picked up the game at retail after it was released, I assumed maybe I might have picked up like a day one edition. Maybe they were bundled with like day one editions or something like that of the game in a first run. I picked up the game pretty shortly after it came out at retail. I can't confirm this personally, but if you can confirm this, then please post a comment about it. So essentially, when I get to talking about the game, the downside of this is that the reason why I bring this up and the downside of this is that unfortunately this DLC has not been made available after the fact. Whereas any publisher or retailer with a brain that offered exclusive DLC for free for pre-orders, if they have at least a shred of common sense in their head, especially if the DLC content is good, they'll offer the DLC content as a separate paid download after the fact, or they'll include it with like a season pass if a season pass of the game is ever released. These are just common sense things. If they're real a-holes, they won't do it. And I always hate when they don't. Even if I got the DLC or not, it's always unfortunate when they simply just cut off an entire possible revenue stream for people who buy the game after the fact. They're willing to pay. I'm willing to pay for extra DLC missions and stuff like that for my games. But it's just so stupid. I feel this is a poor decision if you just don't offer this to anybody after that, and then you cut yourself off from a potential revenue stream. And that's that's what happened with Until Dawn. Okay, so after that detour and talk on DLC, it was obvious I was going to get the game at retail, which I did. But up until that time, Sony was still promoting it. This was going to be there. Let me be honest. There really aren't that many PS4 exclusive games that are currently available, at least not in comparison to the amount of exclusive games that are available for the Xbox One. So when the PS4 has an exclusive title that's out, it's something special. And Until Dawn, let's be honest, was a big exclusive title for Sony, and Sony was going to do a lot to promote it. And they did. They commissioned short live-action films that were done in the style of Until Dawn, many of which are still available on the PlayStation YouTube channel. I don't know about the PlayStation Europe YouTube channel, but they're on the PlayStation American YouTube channel. And so this was a big deal. And all it did was make me want to play it more, because you're like, I like horror. I like these adventure games. Other adventure games like it, let's be honest, they're going to be games like Life is Strange and things like that, basically, which I loved. This is a big deal. Really excited about the cast of characters. Really interested. Of course I'm going to pick this game up. So I do. The game comes out. And it's a big. Everybody's talking about it. Because the PlayStation has a huge install base. So here was this unique game that Sony was promoting quite a bit. It starred recognizable stars, many of which were already recognizable, many of which would become even more recognizable after the game came out, which is a testament to the great actors and actresses that they cast. And it was at the perfect time. It was about a month or two before Halloween. So you had a horror game coming out about a month or two before Halloween. So, perfect timing. I pick up the game. I start playing it. My intention is basically to play the game with my girlfriend. My girlfriend was really excited about playing it herself, as was a couple of my other friends. They all wanted to play it with me. But, so I put the game up on the shelf, and my intention was to do like a live game stream or something like that with my girlfriend or with some of my friends. And so I didn't play it. I had heard things about it. I had heard good things about it. The reviews of it, from what I had heard, were very good. Graphics looked amazing. I had seen some of the early streams of like the first chapter or two. Nothing too spoilerific. Just I had seen some people play the game streams, and I was enjoying them quite a bit. And but I didn't play the game. It took me a while before I actually decided, you know what, my friends are just gonna keep flaking on me. Let me play this game. I want to play this game for myself. Nobody else, it seems, can be. I can't get anybody to play it with me. So let's play it. Let's play it right now. Let's see what we think of it. So I started playing it, and by this point it was a couple of months after the game came out, and I decided I was going to live stream my very first playthrough in its entirety. For those of you who are interested in watching it, it's still available. I have the entire game stream. My entire experience of the first time playing the game streamed, archived on my YouTube channel, and you can just check it out. I have a playlist and everything. So if you want to watch my initial impressions of the game, if you want like specifics about it, go right ahead and watch that Let's Play, because I'm pretty proud of it. It actually turned out better than I hoped for, and that's a testament also not only to to the game, but also to everybody who joined me, my Twitch subscribers who joined me for the stream. That was very nice of them to stick around. So thanks to David, and thanks to Shishi Bell, and thanks to Kajar for that, certainly. So moving on, I guess I could say, well, I don't really want to repeat it here, because if you want to see my initial thoughts about it, you can obviously go check out my stream. But obviously for this particular part, I should say what my thoughts about the game were. First off, I thought the game had some of the best graphics on the PlayStation 4, hands down. And really, although the performance wasn't, I wish the performance had been better. I would have been happier with the game having a slight graphical downgrade if it meant it could have better performance. So it was a bit of a push and pull. That said, everybody's performance in the game, all the actors' performances were hands down amazing. The script for the game was great. You're thinking to yourself, oh, this is probably just going to be some slasher game like Cabin in the Woods or something like that, and there's going to be some serial killer. It's like you could cough that up in a weekend. This script was no minor thing. And that's a testament to the author, who I believe played the flamethrower guy in the game. This was a great script. Nothing was predictable. Nothing was predictable. You could suspect if this was a couple of things. There were a couple of moments in my first playthrough where I thought something may or may not have been up. So I was less shocked. I mean, I think that there were some people, especially during one or two plot twists, I was less shocked than I should have been. But in my defense, when I was playing it, I did suspect things because I was doing I was doing some research, and I was like looking through at the clues and everything. And so there were a couple of things I suspected. The game did, in fact, blanket these things down or sprinkle these clues throughout the game, and you could make these suspicions. And you could have suspicions for certain plot twists. So nothing, it seemed for me personally, came out of the blue. And on top of that, the game does do a full explanation. If you do collect all the totems, you do get a full explanation, and it does fit with the story pretty well. The cool thing that I liked about it, which is again a testament to the writer, is that you can go into it thinking something entirely different based upon the chain of events, and then after the game is done and maybe you play it a second time, and I have played it a second time, you could look back on it and the chain of events still fits for the proper motivations for the characters. That's phenomenal. I mean, I can't think of any major motion pictures these days. There are so many motion pictures out there these days whose character motivations, one way or another, are just completely bunk. It's like, why is he doing this? Oh, it's in service of the plot. What's that? How'd you know that? Is that the script? Is that the script over there? How did you know that? Here, for a video game about a bunch of people out on a snow vacation getting killed off. Wow. Just, you could make everybody's character motivations fit in both a proper way and in a weird way so that to not tip off the audience. Props, definitely. And that to me is, I think, the best, and the fact that it worked for all of the different characters. Let me just give an example, an in-game example of how scenes could have changed, or how minor differences could cause a game to change. Now, you could probably say to yourself, well, I'm going to play a game twice, but I'm going to try to play it the same way each time, as far as my memory concerns. It'll probably play out exactly the same as I remember it. So there's a scene in the game when two of the characters are going off to go find themselves a separate cabin so that they can go have hanky-panky on their own. But they don't just get there. You basically have to control one of the or two of the characters throughout the whole sequence, and you control what they do during this scene. You control what they say to each other. You can't control how the other character reacts to your sayings, but you control what you say to the other characters. The first time I played the scene, I get to the cabin with the two characters. The two characters get to the cabin, and as soon as I get the cabin warmed up and some mood lighting going on, they're pretty much right on top of each other, like boom, 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 boom. Girls in her bra and panties, and again, you can see that and so I'm like, oh, what is going? I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting that to happen. So I decided on my second playthrough of the game. I played through the game twice, particularly because I wanted to get platinum, and I have gotten a platinum in the game. So I played through the game a second time, and I was trying basically to do the best I could to get the same chain of events throughout the most part, with the exception of the characters dying. This scene really doesn't affect, or at least that sequence of events doesn't really affect anybody's character dying or living or anything. It's just how two characters interact for the scene. And so I'm playing the scene. I thought I played it exactly as I remembered it. And so I pull up I warm up the cabin. I start on the fireplace. I get the mood lighting going on, and I'm thinking it's going to be the same scene. Girl in bra and panties. No, it didn't happen. Because there were certain sequences, after I decided to look up how this game works, there were, in fact, certain sequences that I must have lucked into, or I had subconsciously changed my responses during that very long walk. I botched the photo and I didn't realize it, the selfie that they had taken. I had said one or two lines of dialogue, even though my actions were the same. I had comforted the deer. I didn't scare her with the mask. I still had a couple of lines of dialogue that I said or didn't say, or said differently, that affected how the characters felt about each other. And so instead of getting ba 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 ba, I hear, "Do you have any beer? I could really go for some alcohol right now." Like, oh my God, what did I do differently? And it's just subconscious about, there's just no way of knowing, especially on your first playthrough. All you can do is just play it as honestly and earnestly as you feel like. And the scene is going to play out exactly as it's meant to. But you decide to change like one thing or two things, and the scenes can play out entirely differently. And it became the most frustrating to realize when I was trying to play the ending, my second playthrough, I was trying to play the game to get everyone dead. And I looked up some information about how to do this, and I make it to the final scene, and I had a survivor. And I thought, wait, what did I do wrong? I was supposed to have done two particular things in order to get a full death count, but instead I had only botched one thing, and that meant that one of my characters had survived, which completely wrecked my playthrough for trying to get everybody dead, and I had to replay the whole last chapter all over again, which was annoying, but not too bad. That really stuck in my craw. That really drove me crazy. Because, again, you just don't know unless you've got somebody who's completely mapped the game out. And not everybody has mapped this game out. There are some people who say, well, these sequences can trigger these sequences, and this sequence will trigger this sequence, and most of that is mapped out. But there are certain sequences that are more subtle than that. And again, that's a testament to the writers, and that's a testament to the programmers. So that, for me, I mean, this reminded me of like an old school text adventure with graphics. I mean, everybody remembers those type of old school text adventures where you're playing through the game and then a character will interact with you differently based upon certain decisions. And it's not clear to the player exactly unless they've mapped out the game, or they have a strategy guide that's very detailed. And trust me, there are a lot of strategy guides that never went that deep, even ones that people paid for. Although I have seen that for more popular games with those kind of subtleties, the fans have mapped out those certain things. Like, for example, every time I play Silent Hill 2, I still get, unless I'm going for one of the secret endings, which after the first playthrough, as for the original 3 endings, I still get the same ending every time. And even though I've looked at, well, what could cause this or what could cause this, people have mapped out what causes the endings. I still, if I'm trying to get a traditional ending, I still get one of the same endings I still get the exact same ending every time. So, I don't know. I've been told that's the best ending, although I kind of think that the ending number 4 after the first playthrough is probably the best ending in my opinion. But not including the dog or the UFO ending. But that's great. I mean, this game, it took me about, I don't know, half a week to a week to finish the game. And I was playing in pretty good installments. So it's definitely got some time. It definitely takes time to beat. I mean, I've heard people take anywhere from 8 to 12 hours to beat the game, which is, in this day and age, not a bad length, especially for an adventure game made around this time. But it's just infinitely replayable. Change one conversation with Dr. Hill, and then all of a sudden, instead of getting a scarecrow mask on a dummy, you'll get a clown mask on a dummy. A creepy clown mask at that. Change one conversation with one character, and you could literally just destroy their opinion of you, and it could have fatal ramifications for one of the characters later on. Of course, you could get an achievement for it, but, make one off decision and you could lose a hand. How will that affect the character with only having one working hand for the rest of the game? Things are going to play out differently. So it's a very, very in-depth and very, very replayable game. My recommendation is play it with friends. I wish my friends wanted to play it with me. Instead, they watch my stream. But yeah, it's a great game to stream. Although if there was one issue I had about streaming the game, I disagree with this, and I really hope the developers fix this or Sony changes this. The way the game is designed, it's designed basically so that you can't. You could stream the game. You can stream the game. The whole game, nothing is censored, unlike Batman Arkham Knight, which most of the finale is, if not all of the finale, is censored in the game. So you can't stream it at all. There's a game called, basically what happens is if you try to stream Until Dawn, you can stream it, nothing is censored, but you can't get comments in from the people who are watching your stream. So I actually had to disable the comments entirely and basically read the comments from my subscribers, hi subscribers, on my smartphone, because I actually couldn't watch or couldn't have them on the screen, which was unfortunate. But I really wish that they could turn that off. When I stream, I like to have comments. I like to have comments visible because if I'm interacting with people, I want to be able to have that interaction archived. So those are like my one. That's my one complaint. That and the game's performance. I thought the game should have. There's noticeable slowdowns constantly in the game. I mean, again, the graphics look great. It also extremely overheated my PS4. My PS4. Oh my God, that fan was blowing so loud, like it sounded like a jet engine because the game just really made the PS4 run hot. I don't know if that's something that's going to carry over for the Pro or for the Slim. But on a Model 1 PS4, I have asked people about this. This game causes PS4s to heat up, and those fans get very loud. So be aware of that. So those are my thoughts about the game. Like I said, if you want to hear more thoughts about it, then please check out my full Let's Play of it is archived on my YouTube channel. It's in a playlist. The whole thing is in a playlist. Nothing is cut out. I don't think I cut anything out except I did stream some of the documentaries for my subscribers. Those I cut out, but you can probably watch there was nothing added to those. It was just I just basically showed the behind the scenes documentaries to my stream on the stream, but I cut those out for the broadcast. If you want to watch those, then obviously you can either get the game or you can watch them on YouTube on another channel. But other than that, the whole stream is available. You can just watch my reactions to things. I'm pretty proud of that stream. So, all right. So let's talk about what the future holds for Until Dawn. Okay. First off, this is my gripe. I know I said it previously. I want to bring this up just one more time before I forget. I really hope Sony releases, or I should say re-releases, the pre-order DLC for the game. I don't care if they charge for it or if they put it or they make it for free. I want to see that stream. I want to be able to play that DLC sequence. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care how minor it is or if it's with characters that you hate or you personally hated. I really want to see that stream. I'll pay money for it. I'm fine with that. There's nothing holding it back. There should be no legal ramifications as to why it should be held back. And as far as I know, at least in the United States, it was only released through one. It was only released for people who digitally downloaded it and pre-ordered it through a digital download. That's really crappy. That's only like one way. I mean, just because I bought it at retail shouldn't neglect me, because I had such a bad experience with the digital pre-orders on the PlayStation Network. That shouldn't, they should just charge for it. Just release it and charge for it. Secondly, so that's my gripe. They should re-release that in the future. Secondly, the future for Until Dawn. Well, as I've been recording this podcast, the future's already happened. PlayStation VR has been released for the PlayStation 4, and one of the launch titles for PlayStation VR is a VR title called Until Dawn: Rush of Blood, which is a interactive shooting gallery taking place with the Until Dawn branding and the Until Dawn art style. I haven't played it because I don't have a PlayStation VR headset, nor do I really plan to get one anytime soon. Although maybe next year I might. And if I do get a VR headset, it's going to be PlayStation VR. I'm not going Oculus. I'm not going Vive right now. But I mean, again, if I do buy a VR headset, if I do go VR, it's going to be for the PS4. So that's something. But because I really want to play those VR games. Batman looks pretty good. Until Dawn looks pretty good. So it does look pretty good. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. I heard early reviews are positive for it, and some people thought that Until Dawn: Rush of Blood, out of all the games that were available for the PS4 VR headset, that should have been the pack-in title. In some cases, I heard it is a pack-in title for pre-orders and stuff like that, but it's not a pack-in. It's not going to be a pack-in title forever. So, props to them for that. Although, I mean, do we really need VR to play that game? It looks like it can be played without VR. What I'd really like to see is Until Dawn 2. That's really what I'd like to see. And there is a way I think that you can do Until Dawn. This is just my speculation, so don't quote me on this. Well, obviously you can quote me on this, but this is just my speculation. I have no inside sources on Sony or at Supermassive or anything like that for this information. But I think that Until Dawn could work under two circumstances. One, you bring back Dr. Hill. You can definitely bring back Dr. Hill. And I love that actor who plays him. He's a great actor. And secondly, the Wendangos. Bring back the two of them, and you can make and just like create new characters and just have new characters. Reference you can reference the events of the last game. Maybe they lived, maybe they survived. Be vague about it, but you can reference the characters, the previous characters. But you can do Until Dawn 2. You can put them somewhere else. Make it interactive. Keep Dr. Hill. Keep the Wendangos. Get a new primary cast that could live or die, and do it Until Dawn 2. It would work. I think that's how, if you're going to do it Until Dawn 2, that's how you do it. Anyways, if you haven't played the game, if you can tell by this point, it gets a glowing recommendation. If you have a PS4, the game right now, as far as I know, at retail is only $20. It's totally worth picking up. It's a fun game to stream. It's a fun game to play. It's not an impossible platinum trophy. It takes like 2 to 2.5 playthroughs to get a full platinum on it. It's fun. So that's my thoughts about it. I want to say happy Halloween to all my subscribers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. Next time we're going to be doing a podcast on the Xbox One exclusive game, Sunset Overdrive. Hope to see you guys then. Until next time, my name is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Take care, guys. Over and out.